Let me say something that might shake you up before it lifts you up. Access to you should be earned, not assumed. You were not created to be common. You were not born to be a doormat in the hallway of someone else's convenience. You were born to dominate, to rule, to reign, and to walk in purpose, not to be on call for mediocrity. Access to you should be earned, not assumed. That statement isn't just about boundaries, it's about identity. You were created with intention, purpose, and divine design. Every ounce of your time, energy, and presence carries weight. But when you live like access to you is free and automatic, you unintentionally devalue the very gift of who you are. You become available on demand, and that demand begins to wear down your self-worth, your vision, and your clarity. You must understand, not everyone is qualified to experience the depths of your spirit, your wisdom, or your presence. There are people who come into your life only to consume, not to contribute. They want the benefits of proximity, but they haven't earned the right to be close. That doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you wise. Even the most powerful resources on earth are protected. You can't walk into a vault and grab gold just because you felt like it. And you, my friend, are more valuable than gold. When you make yourself too accessible, you become familiar, and familiarity breeds contempt. People stop appreciating what they think they can always reach. They stop respecting what they feel entitled to. They begin to treat your time as something they can borrow without asking, and your energy as something they can drain without consequence. And the danger is, if you let it continue, you start treating yourself the same way, casually, carelessly, and without intention. There's a lie many of us were taught, especially those with a heart to serve, that we must always be available, that our love, our help, our attention should be limitless and unconditional. But wisdom teaches us something different. Love can be unconditional, but access is not. You can love someone deeply and still deny them access to your space, your energy, or your time. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks that open only with the right key. And that key is honor. If someone does not honor your presence, your vision, your values, or your mission, they are not entitled to your time. Too many people have keys to doors they were never meant to walk through. They entered in moments of weakness, of guilt, or of fear of being alone. But just because someone was given access during a vulnerable season does not mean they are meant to stay when you step into your purpose. You are not a convenience store open 24/7. You are a temple, a sacred space, a vessel of purpose. That means your doors open for those who come with respect, alignment, and intention. Your availability should not be based on people's urgency, but on your discernment. Not everyone who knocks should be let in, and not everyone who calls deserves a response. You owe it to your calling to protect your capacity. Because when your time is spread too thin, your purpose gets diluted. When your energy is constantly siphoned by people who take but never pour back, you start running on empty. And when you're empty, you can't serve the people you're actually called to help. You're not just wasting time, you're mismanaging destiny. You're allowing noise to drown out your divine instruction. We must stop confusing being nice with being available. You can be kind and still say no. You can be generous and still hold back access. You can be loving and still protect your time. It's not about building walls to keep people out. It's about raising your standards so that only the aligned come in. Because when you make yourself overly accessible, you lose the power of your presence. Your presence should be a privilege. When you walk into a room, something shifts. When you speak, clarity comes. When you show up, value is added. But none of that happens if you've let yourself become so common that your presence is taken for granted. You were never meant to be everyone's go-to. You were meant to be called upon with respect, with honor, with intention. So So when you start shifting your mindset from I have to be available to I have to be intentional, everything changes. You begin to attract people who see your value. You begin to create space for higher assignments. You begin to walk in power rather than in pressure. And you stop letting others dictate how and when you show up. Because access to you was never supposed to be assumed. It was always meant to be earned. Scarcity increases value. Don't be everywhere, be where you're called. This is not just about being selective with your time. It's about moving with divine precision. When something is always available, it becomes ordinary. When something is always seen, it stops being noticed. And when someone is always accessible, they start being taken for granted. You were not designed to be scattered across every opportunity, every platform, every conversation. You were designed for strategic placement, divine alignment, and intentional presence. When you're everywhere, you're diluted. Your message loses weight, your presence loses power, and your identity gets stretched to fit environments you were never meant to occupy. Just because you can show up somewhere doesn't mean you should. There's a difference between being available and being effective. Some of the most anointed people lose their edge because they confuse motion with mission. But activity is not always productivity. And being seen is not the same as being impactful. Scarcity is not about hiding, it's about honoring your uniqueness. Diamonds are not found on sidewalks, oil doesn't drip from trees. The rarest and most valuable things in life are hidden in depth, in process, in patience. Likewise, your calling will often require seasons of withdrawal, of silence, of being unseen. Not because you're being punished, but because God is preparing the stage and he refuses to let your value be wasted on people who only want to spectate, not steward. In a world that pressures you to post, to talk, to be loud and everywhere at once, the discipline of divine focus becomes your superpower. Every yes you give without discernment steals from the yes you were meant to give to something greater. You were never meant to burn out trying to be available to everyone. You were meant to light fires in specific places for specific people at specific times. That's how legacy is built, not through exposure, but through execution. Your presence is like a seed. Planted in the wrong place, it gets choked out. Planted too often in too many places, it never takes root. But planted where you're called, where your anointing is assigned, fruit begins to grow. Multiplication happens not in many fields, but in the right field. You have to ask yourself, am I sowing my presence into distraction or into destiny? There is a temptation to always say yes, to always show up, to always be seen, especially when you're building something. But real growth doesn't come from being visible, it comes from being valuable, and value is protected, not exposed. You don't need to prove your worth by your presence. You affirm your worth by your placement. You don't chase platforms. People will pull on you, invite you, want pieces of you for their gain, not always your growth. You have to be wise enough to discern the difference between an opportunity and a distraction. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's God. Just because it makes noise doesn't mean it produces fruit. Some doors are designed to detour you, some rooms are designed to drain you, and some stages are designed to strip you of your original voice. Scarcity creates anticipation. It builds honor. It sets the tone that you are not common. You are not a free sample. You are not an open book for casual readers. You are a living word full of power, waiting for the appointed time and the right audience. And when you begin to value your own presence enough to withhold it from the wrong spaces, the right ones begin to appear. You don't need to do everything to be impactful. You just need to do the right things consistently and with conviction. You don't need to be known by everyone. You need to be known by the right people. You don't need to go viral. You need to be valuable. Your influence doesn't come from your reach. It comes from your root. And roots don't grow by moving. they grow by staying planted. If you truly want to increase your value, stop chasing the crowd. Stop trying to fill every room. Stop saying yes to what doesn't align with your assignment. Your scarcity isn't weakness, it's strategy. It tells the world, I don't go where I'm wanted, I go where I'm called. Being overly available lowers your perceived worth. It's a subtle trap that often disguises itself as kindness, helpfulness, or loyalty. But in reality, it slowly chips away at how others view you, and even more dangerously, how you view yourself. When you make yourself constantly accessible, you train people to believe that your time, your energy, and your expertise come without cost. And when something is too easy to get, it rarely gets treated with respect. We've all been there, responding instantly to every message, showing up for every call, saying yes when we should have said no. At first, it feels like we're doing the right thing. We feel dependable, supportive, even admired. But slowly, the dynamic shifts. What was once appreciated becomes expected. What was once seen as a favor becomes seen as your obligation. And the more you give without boundaries, the more invisible your value becomes. People subconsciously associate value with exclusivity. Think about it. The most in-demand professionals, the most respected voices, the most sought-after mentors. They're not easy to reach. You have to book them, wait for them, prepare to speak to them. Their limited availability sends a message. This is someone whose time matters. But when you're always available, you're unconsciously telling the world, my time is cheap, and the world responds accordingly. It's not that people are malicious or ungrateful, it's that humans naturally assign less value to what they can always access. Think about your own habits. You probably treasure the friend who checks in every so often with deep conversation more than the one who texts you all day about nothing. You might admire the speaker who rarely shows up but delivers with power when they do. The principle is the same. Too much access leads to lowered impact. The danger of being overly available is that it also leads to internal resentment. You start feeling drained, overlooked, and underappreciated. You wonder why people don't reciprocate your energy or recognize your effort. But the truth is, you train them to see you as always there, always willing, always ready, and people rarely treasure what they think will never go away. Resentment grows where boundaries are absent. You must learn that availability is not the same as love. You can love deeply without being constantly present. You can support someone without answering every call. You can be generous without giving yourself away. In fact, the more you protect your presence, the more powerful it becomes when you do show up. There is strength in strategic absence. There is influence in being selectively accessible. Being too available also crowds your schedule and clouds your focus. You become reactive instead of intentional. You end up chasing everyone else's emergencies instead of building your own legacy. You put your own growth on pause because you're constantly tending to the needs, requests, and demands of others. The very people you're trying to help may be the ones keeping you stuck, not because they mean harm, but because you haven't taught them how to treat you. Every yes to others is a no to something else. And when your calendar is full of low-value commitments, there's no room for high-impact opportunities. Being overly available makes you miss divine appointments. You're so busy being present everywhere that you're not fully present anywhere. Your energy becomes divided, and divided energy produces diluted results. Excellence requires concentration, not constant accessibility. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you reduce your availability. People start listening more closely when you speak. They pay more attention when you show up. Your words carry more weight. Your presence is felt more deeply. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's understanding that your time is not an endless resource. When you treat it like it is, people will too. But when you guard it like treasure, they'll learn to honor it. Perceived worth is built not just by what you do, but by how you position yourself. You don't need to overcompensate by being everywhere and everything to everyone. You don't need to solve every problem or respond to every call. Your impact isn't in your constant presence, it's in your purposeful placement. When you stop being overly available, you don't become selfish, you become strategic. You attract what you believe you're worth, not just what you want. It's easy to write down goals, say affirmations, and declare that you want abundance, love, opportunity, or favor. But the universe, and more importantly, God, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you deeply believe you deserve. Your life right now is a mirror reflecting not just your desires, but your sense of self-worth. You tolerate, what you chase, and what you settle for are all rooted in your internal value system. People often wonder why they keep attracting toxic relationships, low-paying opportunities, or environments where they're underappreciated. The truth is harsh, but liberating. It's not just happening to you, it's happening through you. Deep down, if you don't believe you're worthy of more, you won't create space for more. You'll self-sabotage without realizing it. You'll shrink in rooms where you were meant to expand. You'll talk yourself out of promotions, partnerships, and powerful moments because your inner narrative says, I'm not enough. Wanting something and being ready for it are two very different things. You can desire $1 million business, but if your identity still feels broke, your actions will sabotage that vision. You can want a healthy, respectful relationship, but if your self-worth is tied to trauma, you'll feel uncomfortable when someone actually treats you well. You'll find ways to create conflict, distance, or drama because peace feels foreign and dysfunction feels familiar. Your belief system is like a thermostat. It sets the temperature of your life. You might temporarily step into a higher level, but if your internal setting is still on low, you'll unconsciously cool things down until you return to your baseline. That's why transformation doesn't begin with your environment. It begins with your mindset. It begins with renewing how you see yourself, how you value your presence, and how you believe God sees you. You can't expect royalty when you see yourself as a servant. You can't expect premium results with a discount mentality. If you don't believe you're worth being pursued, you'll keep chasing. If you don't believe you're worth investing in, you'll keep settling for scraps. Your energy introduces you before your words ever do, and that energy is shaped by what you carry inside: confidence or insecurity, faith or fear, abundance or lack. The spiritual principle behind this is clear. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Not as he wishes, not as he hopes, as he thinks. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you rise to the level of your identity. If your self-talk is filled with doubt, guilt, shame, or unworthiness, that becomes the frequency you emit, and everything you attract, people, situations, outcomes, responds to that frequency, not to the highlight reel of your goals. Even your prayers are shaped by what you believe you deserve. Some people pray small, not because God is small, but because they've convinced themselves they're not worthy of more. They pray for survival instead of overflow. They ask for just enough instead of trusting for more than enough. Not because they don't want abundance, but because somewhere deep inside, they feel undeserving of it. And that hidden belief becomes a barrier, not because God can't bless them, but because they won't receive what they can't believe. You must confront every internal voice that tells you you're not worthy of the life you desire. Because until you change your inner agreement, your outer reality will stay the same. You can network, hustle, brand, post, market, and strategize, but if your identity says unworthy, all of it will fall flat. Identity is the soil where your results grow. If the soil is toxic, the fruit will never taste right. You don't get what you want, you get what your spirit believes you deserve. This is why healing is not optional, it's essential. You cannot upgrade your life without upgrading your self-esteem. You must forgive the voices that broke you, the environments that ignored you, and the past that tried to define you. And you must allow yourself to believe deeply, consistently, unapologetically, that you are worthy of everything good that is meant for you. Not based on your perfection, but based on your identity as someone chosen, someone called, someone destined. The shift begins when you stop waiting for people to validate your worth and start walking in it. When you stop asking for permission to believe in yourself. When you stop hoping someone else will see your value and start deciding to live like it's already true. Because the moment your belief aligns with your vision, your life begins to rise. Not just because you want it to, but because now you finally believe you're worth it. Protect your energy by auditing who has access to you. Your energy is one of the most powerful